Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Alda Chandiananta. I want to explain about the introduction to educational research. Alright, I start with an explanation of what research is. Okay, I will explain you about the research. What is research? Research is a process of exploring something unknown by identifying the problem, collecting the data, analyzing, and reporting it. Next, the types of research methods according to experts. The first is qualitative research. Qualitative research is the type of research expressed in words used to analyze concepts or tasks in order to get an in-depth understanding about the topics. Data can be collected by interviews or observations. The second, quantitative research. Quantitative research is a type of research expressed in numbers and used to confirm theories or assumptions. The numeric data can be collected by survey. The third, a mixed method. A mixed method is a type of research conducted in two ways, combining qualitative research and quantitative research. Next, types of educational research. The first is experimental research. What is experimental research? Experimental research is research that is closest to the scientific method. The study administered different treatments to the two groups and then studied the effect of the treatment. The results of the study are clear and straightforward interpretations. For example, a biology teacher wants to know effective on-site teaching methods for teaching abstract concept photosynthesis. So he can design a study to compare the effectiveness of two kinds of teaching methods to improve students' understanding. Next is correlational research. Correlational research is the purpose of the study is to determine the relationship between two variables. For example, a math teacher wants to know what kind of individual of 10 has difficulty in learning algebra. If we can predict correctly, then we can recommend correction suggestions to the teacher to use certain methods so that children enjoy learning algebra. For this reason, we need to collect a number of information that is thought to be related to algebraic concepts such as students' performance in logic text studying algebraic concepts, or counting skills, understanding mathematical concepts, solving problems, verbal abilities, study habits, students' experience in learning mathematics, or experiences with mathematics teacher. Another information that counts students who like algebra lessons and students who hate algebra lessons. Correlational research aims to investigate meaningful relationships. Therefore, in this study, it is hoped that there will be no intervention or manipulation that can affect the results, except for the research instruments needed to collect data. The sample must be the same individual. Next, comparative causal research. Comparative causal research is study aims to investigate the effects of difference between groups or people. For example, the teacher wants to compare whether the learning outcomes of students from single-parent families are worse than students from whole families. To investigate this, the teacher must systematically select two groups of students, or single parents and full parents. After that, the teacher compares the learning outcomes. After being significantly different, the teacher should not immediately conclude that the family situation affects students' achievements, because there are other factors that can affect student learning outcomes. The interpretation of comparative causal research is limited because the researchers should not conclude that certain factors can influence the observed behavior. In this example, the teacher doesn't know, first, that the difference in achievement may be caused by the situation at home. Second, The status of parents can also cause differences in achievement. And the third is there are other factors that influence. Next, survey research. This study aims to obtain data that determine the specific nature of a group. For example, a school principal wants to know the impact of his administrative policies. Do students like or dislike the policy? Which policies do you like the most and which do you dislike the most? A descriptive survey needs to prepare a number of questions that are packaged in the form of a questionnaire or questionnaire for a large number of respondents or individuals by mails, by telephone, emails, or SMS. If you want a direct answer from the respondent, it can be done through an interview. The answers are then tabulated, generally in terms of the frequency or percentage of questions answered. Difficulties of survey research are: first, there is doubt about the answers given, whether it's a pure or honest or not careless. The second, return all questionnaires completely so they then can be analyzed correctly. The benefit of survey research is the possibility of obtaining large amounts of information from a large sample. If the researcher expects a more detailed answer, it can be done through interview. The advantage of the interview is that it can create open-ended questions or via a list of questions, so that detailed and in-depth answers can be obtained. 5 is qualitative research. A researcher can hope to obtain a complete portrait of the educational process through qualitative research. In this study, researchers can obtain a holistic picture that occurs in a special situations or setting. For example, how does a sports teacher can teach a material? What do teachers do in their daily routines activities? What do students do every day? What activities do you do every day? To obtain answers to the questions above, researchers can conduct ethnographic research, which emphasizes documentation and descriptions of activities or what is experienced by individuals through observations and interview. For example, it can be done in a class in elementary school where the researchers observes the activities of teachers and students in full, intact, and then describes them in great detail. This description is a portrait of the social atmosphere in the class. How the roles of student and teacher in the classroom are learned, modified, and present as unique things. Teacher questions, students questions, and so on. Qualitative research is a detailed study of the individual or group being studied, so it can be called a case study. Next is historical research. This research deals with aspects that happened in the past. Data were obtained through document research or interviews with individuals who lived at that time. This study seeks to reconstruct as accurately as possible about what happened at that time and explain it. For example, a curriculum coordinator at school wants to know about the arguments that occurred in the past about the 12th grade curriculum. For that, he must read various results of social research and curriculum theory which then need to be compared. And the last is classroom action research. Classroom action research, or CER, is situational concern with diagnosing problems in certain contexts, such as problems in the classroom or at school. The problems depart from daily learning practice that are really felt by the teacher or student. Then the solution is sought to improve the quality of education, student achievements, the teaching professions, and the quality of the school by reflection on oneself as a practitioner in the implementations of his studies and at the same time systematically researching his own practice. Classroom action research is a collaborative effort between teachers and students. It's self-evaluative, namely modifications of practice that are carried on continuously and evaluated in ongoing situations in addition to improving the practice of learning. The next is research types in general. Educational research can conduct research on the achievement of students' learning outcomes associated with teacher behavior, student eating patterns, student interests, or parental attitudes. This research connects things or phenomena that are considered meaningful to be studied. Research that examines this extent of a relationship is often called association research. For example, correlational studies or comparative causal studies. Example of correlational studies, for example. E. Between learning outcomes and attitudes, childhood experience with characteristic of adult behavior or teacher characteristic and students' learning outcomes. B. Between methods and learning outcomes. Two classes taught with different methods, between gender and attitude, or comparing attitudes of men and women. Intervention study is a study in which there is a treatment that is expected to affect the expected outcome. Example, the effectiveness of various teaching methods, curriculum models, class structure, and attempts to influence group or individual characteristics. Intervention studies can generate general theories through evidence. The main method in intervention studies is the experimental methods. Some types of research can also combine the three general approaches: methods historical or historical research and qualitative research, or actually descriptive, sometimes exceptional if the researcher examines a relationship. For example, a historical descriptive study that examines the relationships between prerequisites, concepts, and mathematics learning outcomes over time in an associational method. An ethnographic study that describes in detail and the daily activities of a school and then find a relationship between the media and teacher morale in that school means using descriptive and associational studies. Okay, the last one I'll explain you about research process. The first is formulations of research problems. Formulations of research problems is the problem must be preceded by the background of the problem. Describe the factors that cause the problem and rationale or considerations about the importance of the problem to be investigated. Legal issues and ethical explanations related to the problem need to be discussed and resolved. The second is formulate research questions or hypotheses. Research problems are generally formulated in the form of questions and sometimes hypotheses. Hypotheses are conjectures, therefore the sentences must be clear, straightforward, and describe the variable to be tested. Third is definition. Definition: all terms in problems, formulation, and hypothesis must be explained clearly. The fourth is literature review. The studies related to problem formulation should be described briefly and clearly. Literature studies or journals, research reports, quotes, or adaptations must be explained clearly about what is known and logically and be used as initial knowledge for researchers. 5 is sample. The research subject or sample must be identified and the large group from which the sample is derived or populations must be clearly identified, as well as the sampling procedure. The 6th, Research instrument. Measurement instruments used for data collection from subjects must be described in detail and also relational for their use. 7 is research procedure. Describe the actual research procedures which are carried out by researchers in conducting research or not theoretical procedures. And the last is data analysis. Explanation of how to analyze statistical techniques used, both descriptive and inferential used to analyze. That's all from me. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.